William Hague, when he was leader of the Conservative Party, fought an election on the promise to save the pound. Well, now there's a different priority. Save British jobs is the demand being made, as we've heard, by industrial workers around the UK who claim they're being squeezed out by cheaper labour, particularly from Eastern and Southern Europe. And more strikes are expected this week. So where are Conservative sympathies? William Hague, now Shadow Foreign Secretary, is here. Do the men who are protesting have a point, have a case?
Well, they clearly have some legitimate questions that they're asking. We've got to recognise people are very worried about unemployment now, and we should all want British people and British companies to win contracts and to have employment. But when Gordon Brown said British jobs for British workers at the party conference in September 2007, it was a fiction in pretending that that could be guaranteed, because there is free movement of workers within the European Union, other than the current restrictions on people from Bulgaria and Romania.
Frank Field has said this morning that it would be a good idea to stop companies bringing in foreign workers unless the jobs had been advertised properly here first, and it was clear that there weren't skilled British workers who could do those jobs. Would that be a good kind
I think you would find that that was in conflict with all the commitments we've entered into in the European Union. But I don't think those things involve going back on the free movement of workers within the European Union, which is one of the aspects of the single market, which of course we strongly support.
So those people looking for a change of policy to the Conservatives are going to be disappointed on that issue?
Well, if they want, I think they'll be disappointed if they ask any political party to say, any mainstream or responsible political party, to say we can guarantee British jobs for British workers, which is why it was so unbelievably ridiculous and silly of the Prime Minister to say that in the first place.
It's winter and there is discontent. There was no let-up in this dispute, despite the weather. Today, even more protesters arrived in the dark to support this unofficial strike, fired up by the Prime Minister telling them their actions were indefensible.
On television yesterday, he tried to get out of it by saying we're doing skilled work. But what he meant were British jobs for British people, and he's gone back on it.
To me, the main thing is British jobs for British workers.
Here at the Lindsey refinery, unions did go in to start negotiations. The outcome was a request to go back to work before any further negotiations, but that was rejected.
You just know that they will come out with that statement, get back to work before we negotiate. So patronising, we just don't accept that at all.
An unofficial strike is a counterproductive way of solving problems that can actually be solved by discussion and by negotiation.
I think what the Prime Minister was referring to was apprenticeships rather than jobs.
It's about having the right to go to work, within a reasonable distance of your own home.
On the Lindsey site, the great majority of the workers are actually British. So clearly, no policy of discrimination or exclusion of British nationals is being operated at the refinery.
The penny dropped yesterday with British workers. They finally realised that we're in a common market that's turned into a European Union whereby their jobs cannot be protected, and there is no way that any British government can put British workers first. Well, the only way we can do it is to withdraw from the European Union, and let's have free trade. Let's have the free movement of capital, let's have the free movement of goods and services, but not the free open-door movement of labour.
Mr Farage, 1.5 minutes.
President, illegal immigration is a problem, made of course worse by the free movement of peoples. But the current wave of unrest that is spreading rapidly through Britain is of course being caused by legal migration and by the European Union's own rules. For 20 years, British trade unions, having been seduced by Jacques Delors, thought the European Union was in their interests. Well, now the penny's dropped and they've realised that a British government is unable to put British interests first. I'm afraid it's set to get quite a lot worse, because as we embark upon a round of massive public spending projects such as the Olympics and Council House building, thousands of European workers are set to benefit. British jobs for British workers cannot be guaranteed all the while we're inside the EU, and the prospect of British taxpayers funding foreign workers is frankly unacceptable. But the government's holding firm, saying that the European Union is a wonderful thing. Well, it's not surprising, is it, as Lord Mandelson is still getting £78,000 a year from the European Commission and, of course, gets a dependent pension on this in just a few years' time. A conflict of interest if ever I saw one. The big concern now is, will the far right, will xenophobia benefit? Well, we don't want that either, and we in UKIP will put a non-racist agenda to the British people at the European elections, saying it's time to put British interests first. We are not protectionists, but we want good common sense, and we want to control our own borders and decide who lives, works and settles in our country. Thank you. To find out more about who we are and what we stand for, go to the UK Independence Party website at www.ukip.org.